Another aspect of complementarity are principle and illustration. For instance, Surah Al-Mujadala, the principle that Allah will help His messengers to victory against their opponents, the principle is mentioned in Al-Mujadala, and in Al-Hashr you have a detailed illustration of that principle. He cites another example, or he identifies another type of complementarity, is that they have the same theme, but they provide different types of evidence for the central thesis. He says that Surah Yusuf and Surah al-Ra'd both have the same thesis, that good ultimately triumphs over evil. And Surah Yusuf provides historical evidence for that, empirical evidence, illustration through events. And Surah Al-Ra'd appeals to reason and phenomena of nature to make the same point. And then he mentions difference of emphasis as a fourth type of complementarity. Surahs al-Baqarah and al-Imran are thematically related. They're a pair. They both deal with the people of the book. Surah al-Baqarah focuses on the Jews. Al-Imran focuses on the Christians. A fifth aspect of complementarity is premise and conclusion. Just in the interest of time, we'll just run along. Number 6, unity of opposites. An illustration of that, Talaq, Surah Talaq tells Muslims how to observe the limits of Allah, al-hudud, in a relationship of hostility. Obviously, when people are getting divorced, it's because they couldn't carry on with each other. They couldn't get along. In Surah Tahrim, which follows it, tells them how to do so in a relationship of love. And then the Islaahee and the Farahi thesis is that not only are these, do you have this phenomenon of surah pairing, but you also have a larger gathering of surahs around some kind of common theme. And he identified 7 groups, each dealing with a master theme that is developed systematically within the surahs of the group. Now, one of his examples for that is Surah 6, 7, 8, and 9. Al-An'am, Al-A'raf, Al-Anfal, and At-Tawbah. Now, the way he explains it, I mean, you can intuitively sense that there is something there. The way he explains it for Al-Anfal and At-Tawbah doesn't satisfy me completely, but I'll just tell you what he said, and you try and think about it and maybe come to a clearer explanation of how Al-Anfal and Tawbah fit into this progression. But anyway, he says Al-An'am is an invitation. It's inviting the Quraysh in particular, and these as the first audience, to contemplate the universe around them, and that there is one creator who runs it, and then the implication is that success lies in submitting to this creator, this ruler. So in all aspects of worship, including legislation. And then Al-A'raf picks up that theme right from the beginning. لَا تَتَّخِذُوا مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ. Don't choose, follow what's been revealed from your Lord, and don't take awliya, guardians, protectors, etc., authorities other than Allah. And then it presents, the whole surah is a warning. If you don't accept this message, this is what happens to you. So it has all these examples from previous ummahs, the Prophet came to them, they rejected him, and they were destroyed again and again. Then Al-Anfal instructs the Muslims, this is his take, instructs the Muslims to unite under the banner of Islam in preparation for confrontation with the Quraysh, who had by this time rejected the invitation. And we know that Al-Anfal is a pretty early Medinan surah. Al-An'am and Al-A'raf were Meccan surahs. Al-Anfal is a pretty early Medinan surah. And it is just as, historically, it's dealing with the very first stage of jihad. The whole theme of the surah is the Battle of Badr. And then At-Tawbah presents an ultimatum to the Quraysh, who as the immediate addressees of the Qur'an had to choose between Islam and war. That's his take on it. I mean, there's other things going on in At-Tawbah that maybe some other formulation could be made for just exactly what the central theme of that surah is. And so that's, it's a very interesting theory. If you want to examine it in English, Mustansir has written a whole book called Coherence in the Qur'an, where he puts forward this theory. It's not a very large book. I believe it's published by ATP, American Trust Press, the ISNA publishing house in the U.S. And Mustansir in general, he's got a lot of really interesting writings on tafsir. His tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha is just really interesting. Anyway, as a wrap up or as a part 2 for this lecture, thematic tafsir. This is not the same as what we've already talked about. What it does is it picks a topic and then it gathers all the relevant verses in the Qur'an about that topic. And there can be various approaches to it. Some of it is simply, it's almost nothing but just arrangement. An example of that is major themes of the Qur'an. Is that what it's called? Concepts of the Qur'an, a topical reading. It's a very thick book, and it organizes verses into chapters based upon particular theme or concept or topic. And there's not a whole lot of authorial voice there. It's basically just rearrangement. And then there are other approaches where, for instance, al-Ma'i, his proposal for the methodology of thematic tafsir is that you choose the verses on a theme, and if you can, you arrange them chronologically. So you see how this idea developed over the course of the revelation, and then you explain, you interrelate them, you explain them, and you discuss misconceptions or specious arguments that have been raised on the topic, and refute them, and you make manifest, you point out the divine wisdom in the approach to that given topic, the legislation related to it, that's what thematic tafsir is really supposed to do. Now, I'll just give you a brief sampling of 2 approaches to that. One is al-Ma'i, and the other is Fazlur-Rahman. Al-Ma'i, I'll give you a briefer take on his approach, just talking about his topics, and he starts out with discussing thematic tafsir in general. Then he talks about the themes of specific surahs, mostly the large surahs from al-Baqarah to Tawbah, and then a few scattered surahs besides. And then he devotes the bulk of the book to various topics: Tawheed, the angels, prophets and messengers, divine scriptures, ikhlas, belief in the unseen and its effect upon society. And here he presents a survey of what various mufassirs had to say about the term ghaib and what it meant in different passages. A lot of it's rather problematic. I'll just mention for you his results. One is that it refers to the hereafter. And to say that, that was presented, that's what's meant at the beginning of Surah al-Baqarah, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Just some mufassirs' illustration of al-Ghaib by one of its examples, heaven and hell, etc., the day of judgment. Some in one passage in Surah al-Takwir, that he is not stingy regarding the ghaib. وَمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ بِالضَّنِينَ, verse 24 from the Takwir. One of the explanations of that is it refers to the ghaib there is revelation, that he's not holding back. Jibreel is not holding back, or the Prophet ﷺ was not holding back on transmitting what was revealed, or what he was entrusted with. Predestined events, in Surah al-A'raf, وَلَوْ كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبَ لَاسْتَكْثَرْتُ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ وَمَا مَسَّنِيَ السُّوءُ. If I knew the unseen, then I would have gathered all forms of good for myself. I would have gathered all forms of good to myself, and no harm would have touched me. So in other words, if you knew what was coming tomorrow, then you could prepare for it and guard against bad things happening to you. And then various other meanings in other surahs or ayat, guesswork, rain, the death of Suleiman, the preserved tablet, absence from someone's presence, the time when punishment will descend, the names of non-Muslims who would accept Islam eventually. So this is some of the things that he talked about. Other topics: qada and qadr, the divine decree; al-wala wal-bara, allegiance and disavowal; obedience to Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam; justice, jihad; knowledge, wealth; the universality of the Islamic message.